In the new 20.5 million salary cap era of college football, a dollar wasted on a hype-driven four-star quarterback is no longer just a bad play. It is a strategic failure that cripples your entire roster. While the rest of the country overpays four-star power and marketing gloss, the smartest general managers are realizing a hard truth. The transfer portal is flooded with overpriced commodities, and the teams that win next won't be the ones with the most money, but the ones with the highest production per dollar. Today we're going to break down what positions are inflated, which are a steal, and where the Sooners should direct their attention in the transfer portal. But before we continue, if you like fact-filled Sooner content, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Plus, thanks to Addison Severns for joining the Stat Fanatic membership. Him and others have direct access to this portal app that tracks the value of positions in the portal, who is leaving, and who is available in the portal. Become a member today for 99 cents to get access now.
Welcome to Sooner Stats, your home for Oklahoma Sooners coverage.
The ecosystem of collegiate athletics has undergone a transformation so profound and rapid that it renders the operational playbooks of the past decade obsolete. We have transitioned from an era of amateurism, defined by scholarship limits and rigid transfer restrictions, to a pseudo-professional marketplace characterized by unrestricted free agency, the transfer portal, and uncapped player compensation, or NIL. This shift has birthed a chaotic, inefficient market where capital allocation is often driven by hype, star ratings, and recruiting service rankings rather than tangible, predictive performance metrics. For the modern athletic director or general manager, the challenge is no longer merely talent identification. It is value identification. The college football market is rife with inefficiency. Programs are routinely overpaying for volatility at premium positions while undervaluing consistent production at non-premium positions. This report applies the principles of Moneyball, the economic analysis of sports performance, to identify undervalued assets to the current transfer portal landscape. By synthesizing internal volume and performance data with external financial market realities, we aim to quantify the efficiency gap. This gap represents the opportunity available to programs that are willing to decouple their spending strategies from the consensus star system and focus instead on the cost per unit of on-field production. Recent legal settlements, specifically House versus NCAA, have established a framework where institutions may soon directly share revenue with athletes, with a projected cap of approximately $20.5 million annually per school. This cap effectively acts as a soft salary cap, introducing the necessity for rigid bankroll management previously foreign to college sports. However, the salary cap is permeable. Third-party NIL collectives continue to supplement roster construction, creating a two-tiered economy. The base economy, which is institutional revenue sharing and scholarships, and the luxury economy, which is third-party NIL deals driven by donor sentiment and market hype. In this environment, efficiency is paramount. To understand the price of labor, one must first understand the supply curve. The transfer portal is not a monolith. It is a segmented market where liquidity varies wildly by position. Analyzing the portal alongside transfer trends reveals which positions are commodities and which are scarce assets. Analysis of the portal uncovers a significant volume of entries at the perimeter skill positions. The portal is populated heavily with wide receivers and defensive backs, reflecting a broader national trend of high turnover at these spots. The supply of wide receivers is elastic. If a team misses on their primary wide receiver target, there are hundreds of alternatives available. Consequently, the replacement cost for a wide receiver should be relatively low. However, the actual price paid for wide receivers is inflated, creating a massive inefficiency. The market treats wide receivers as scarce assets due to star power, despite the data proving they are abundant commodities. In a Moneyball framework, investing heavily in scarce assets is justifiable while overpaying for abundant assets is a strategic error. However, a market flooded with bodies is not the same as a market flooded with talent. We track the data of the share of total portal entrants from 2021 through 2026 to validate the bubble thesis with precision. At first, we look at the secondary flood. Defensive backs consistently represent the single largest slice of the market, accounting for roughly 20.4% of all entrants in the 2025 cycle. Out on the perimeter, wide receivers follow closely, representing 14.6% of the market. Conversely, quarterbacks make up only 6.9% of the market, reinforcing the supply crisis at the game's most important position. A critical Moneyball insight emerges when we isolate blue chip talent or 4-star and 5-star prospects. The raw volume of players can mask the true scarcity of elite players. While wide receivers are abundant, they also dominate the elite tier, comprising 18.6% of all blue chip players available. This creates a fool's gold effect where GMs see many 4-star wide receivers and overspend, failing to realize that this specific talent pool is actually highly liquid. The data reveals a massive inefficiency in the linebacker market. While linebackers are relatively common in general volume, they are incredibly scarce in the elite tier, representing less than 5% of the blue chip market. What this means is a 4-star linebacker in the portal is a statistically rarer asset than a 4-star wide receiver. Securing an elite linebacker provides a greater scarcity premium than securing an elite wide receiver. Looking at edge rushers, this position group boasts the highest concentration of elite talent. In the 2025 cycle, 8.1% of all edge entrants were blue chips. This indicates that the portal is a viable mechanism for acquiring elite pass rushers, unlike the offensive line where truly elite talent rarely hits the market. When we start looking at the talent of the players that typically enter the portal, the vast majority of portal activity involves 3-star athletes moving laterally from G5 to G5 or downward from P4 to G5 or FCS for playing time. These players often possess high experience floors but lack the ceiling that major donors pay for. When looking at players with 4-star ratings in the transfer portal, these are high potential talents who likely underperform or were buried on the depth chart at elite programs. The market often prices them based on their high school ranking rather than their college production, leading to overpayment for unproven commodities. This leads us to believe the star rating is a sticky metric. A player rated as a 4-star recruit in high school retains that premium label even if their on-field production in college has been negligible. This pedigree bias allows GMs to exploit the market by targeting lower-rated 3-star players with better actual production stats who cost significantly less. To calculate efficiency, we must determine the denominator in our equation, price. Using online resources from the 2024-2025 NIL landscape, we can establish a cost basis for each position group. This would represent the going rate for talent in the current Power 4 economy. Looking at quarterbacks, the market for QBs has completely detached from the rest of the roster. Reports indicate that top transfer QBs, like Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati, are commanding valuations between 2.4 and 5 million. Even some unproven backups, like once Arch Manning, held valuations exceeding 5 million due to brand power. This represents a massive financial risk. A bust at this price point cripples a collective's budget for years. Shifting to running backs, despite being the engines of many college football offenses, running backs are paid pennies on the dollar. The average NIL earnings for an running back hover around $59,000. Elite running backs have valuations around $277,000, which is a fraction of what a mediocre QB costs. This mirrors the NFL's devaluation of the position, but fails to account for the fact that running backs determine outcomes in college football far more frequently than in the pros. Safeties are consistently the lowest paid defenders, with averages around $79,000. However, elite safeties like Caleb Downs show the transcendent talent at the position can command QB money. But for the middle class of transfers, safeties are incredibly cheap relative to their production. When looking strictly at star ratings, a 5-star transfer commands a minimum of around $1 million, regardless of production history. 4-star players is the most volatile tier. A 4-star wide receiver might cost $400,000, while a 4-star running back might cost $150,000. Lastly, looking at 3-star players, this is the Moneyball tier. 3-star transfers often have chip on the shoulder productivity but lack the marketing gloss, keeping their prices suppressed near the 50 to 100,000 range. So what does this mean for the Sooners in 2026? Currently, OU has several players in the portal, and I'm sure more will be joining soon. The 2026 Oklahoma Sooners represent the perfect laboratory for testing the efficiency gap theories. Entering the 5th year of the Brent Venables era, the program faces a classic market imbalance. Defensive roster being hollowed out by graduation, NFL draft, and transfer portal, and an offensive roster defined by extreme youth and high volatility. One of the most important positions for the Oklahoma Sooners right now that they should invest more attention to is the linebacking group. The potential loss of all 3 top linebackers, Kip Lewis, Kobe McKenzie, and Owen Heineke, creates a leadership vacuum. Instead of overpaying for a 5-star recruit who needs development, the audit identifies Austin Romaine from Kansas State as the gold standard acquisition. Romaine brings signal calling equity, the ability to run the defense, which is a scarce asset in the portal. A value buy complementing him would be Caleb Bacon from Iowa State. A former walk-on with elite production, fits the motor overhype model. Bacon is a rental who provides immediate SEC-level disruption without the premium cost of a brand-name star. Looking at the trenches, the exit of Dominic Williams leaves the interior defense vulnerable to the run. The audit targets John Walker from UCF and DeSean Watts from Sacramento State. Watts is the textbook definition of the efficiency gap. As an FCS transfer, his market price is suppressed, yet his metrics suggest P4 quality. Investing in Watts allows Oklahoma to acquire elite production at a discount compared to a Big Ten transfer. Looking at the wide receivers, the offense was one-dimensional in 2025, lacking a big X receiver to complement the speed of Isaiah Satania. Rather than competing for the most expensive wide receivers in the portal, the audit points to Jackson Harris from Hawaii. Harris generated 12 touchdowns and 19.6 yards per catch in 2025. While coming from the Mountain West, his finisher rating is in the 99th percentile. He offers the verticality of a 5-star prospect at the price of a G5 transfer, effectively replacing Deion Burke's production with a more physically imposing frame. Lastly, the tight end room. The OU tight end room produced 1 touchdown in 2025, a statistical anomaly in Oklahoma Sooner history. Brody Foley from Tulsa is the target Oklahoma should have their sights on. Foley scored 7 touchdowns in 2025. The difference between 1 and 7 touchdowns represents wins and losses, yet Foley, a G5 transfer, will command significantly less NIL capital than a flashy, unproductive P4 tight end. He serves as the bridge to younger talent like Tyler Ruxer. Using this philosophy, this proves that a 10-win team can transition to a championship contender not by spending more, but by spending smarter. By targeting high production, low hype assets from the G5 and FCS levels to fill specific statistical voids. Oklahoma can reconstruct its roster to compete for a 12-team playoff spot without breaking the salary cap. What do you think? Which positions do you think Oklahoma should throw the most money at? Which position group do you think needs the most help? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you again for watching all the way till the end. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, notification bell. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Boomer.